Time now for News Extra on KNEB, and it's brought to you by First State Bank. Here's Kevin Mooney.
Thank you, Dennis. Good morning, everyone. Our guest today is from the Gering Public Library. Shelley Ruterbories is here, and we're going to talk about Native American History Month and a special guest they have this weekend to mark Native American History Month. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Let's talk about your guest and where he's from and what he's going to talk about on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Jerome Small is our guest speaker, and he's brought, thanks to a grant from the Humanities Nebraska. He is an Oglala Lakota from Porcupine, South Dakota, and he actually teaches at the University of South Dakota. And his subject areas are Lakota language, American Indian thought, and Siouan tribal culture. And he also teaches at the Nebraska Indian Community College in Santee. The program that we are actually having him come down to do is called Children's Stories, Animal Stories, and Traditional Lakota Stories. So he's going to be telling some stories and giving a little insight into the history and background of Lakota storytelling.
All right, very good. And this is 2 o'clock Saturday down in the community room, right?
Yes, in the basement of the library in the community room.
All right. So obviously this guy is very well versed in Lakota history and so forth, and the children's stories, I would assume, have a little link to Native American history, I would imagine.
Yes. The types of stories he does are Iktomi stories, which are trickster tales, and Ohun Kanka, the old legends, and then the children's stories. And these would be more, when you think about Lakota stories or Indian stories that have been made into books, children's books, picture books, these are the kind of things.
Okay, and then there's a question and answer session after he's done? There
is. I had the privilege of talking to Mr. Small on the phone when we were getting this set up, and he is extremely well-versed in the history of his people, obviously, and he is a great speaker, and I think he will just be really interesting. If there's good questions, he will bring good content.
All right. And this is absolutely free of charge.
It is, yes.
The Nebraska Humanities Conference pays for this, and do they work? They're working with the South Dakota Humanities Conference too here in this?
Actually, no. They just have a catalog of speakers, and they provide the funding, and whatever organization brings them in provides the space and the planning and all that kind of thing. They're funded through the National Endowment for the Humanities, Nebraska State Legislature, and the Nebraska Cultural Endowment. They actually have approximately 300 programs that they can bring anywhere in Nebraska for a nonprofit organization, and we were lucky enough to get one of their grants to bring in Mr. Kilsman.
That's great. All right, we'll talk more right after this.
Love touches everyone, both those who give as well as those who receive. For 33 years, First State Bank has been able to touch the lives of many in the Panhandle through our Gift of Love program, and this year is no exception. We invite you to share your love by picking a name from our tree of names or donating new children's coats. You may leave your donations at either of our First State Bank locations, 2002 Broadway in Scottsbluff or 1540 10th Street in Gering, by no later than December 10. All donations stay in the Valley. Won't you give? First State Bank, member FDIC.
Back on News Extra this morning, Shelley Ruterbories is here from the Gering Library. We're talking about Native American History Month, and Jerome Small, who's a professor at the University of South Dakota, will be at the library to tell children's stories, animal stories, talk about Lakota culture and stories regarding the Lakota Indians. And he'll be there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday over at the Gering Community Room. Now, while you're there, you might as well kind of take a tour of the library and see what's new. So what kind of stuff can people see?
At the library right now, we've got a few displays of books, some that are just sort of general interest, and one that's specifically on Native American history in the local area and nationally. So you could definitely check that out. We also recently got an AWE early literacy station, and that was funded through the Friends of the Gering Public Library. And it's just a way for kids to play on a computer and get some computer skills while also learning about math and science and reading and music.
All right, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also have computers for the adults. A lot of them, actually, more than you used to.
We do, yes. We got a BTOP grant, and so that means we have 8 computers that are laptops that we can check out if we have overflow on the computers or for programming. One of the programs that's upcoming that we'll be using those for is a financial literacy and learning program that'll come up in January, and that's through the Nebraska Library Commission and the Extension Service in Nebraska.
All right, and then obviously you guys are hoping one of these days to move into a new location. There's been a lot of talk about different locations. I think the new hotel they're talking about in Gering is going to be at one of the locations where they talked about having you guys.
It is.
And then there's been other locations. Maybe when they take down the Lane Auction House, maybe you guys can go there. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Really, if you just come into the library at 3:45, you'll see we are overloaded with kids, which is great. We love having them there and the ability to serve them in that way, but it gets really loud and crowded, and our books are stacked floor to ceiling, and we do good weeding. We take out the ones that don't get used, but we bring in new books all the time, so a new building would really help us to relieve a little bit of that pressure in terms of people and books being overcrowded.
All right, so hear that, Gering City Council need to work on that a little bit. Find a location for the Gering Library. And once again, let's talk just real quick, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. Jerome Killsmall, and what kind of program he's going to present?
Jerome Killsmall will be at the Library Community Room at 2 o'clock on Saturday to present children's stories, animal stories, and traditional Lakota stories. He is a teacher from the University of South Dakota. He's actually an Oglala Lakota himself, and he'll be presenting, first of all, his set presentation, and then there for a question and answer period at the end where we can get to know him and learn a little bit more about Oglala Lakota culture.
All right, it's all free. 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon over at the Gering Library. We appreciate Shelley coming in. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for having me.